What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 446. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show. And as always, I'm joined with
Ron.
Side. Go ahead.
Chew.
Roman Reigns.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
You look just like him.
Yeah, very Samoan today.
Yeah, you got that look on you.
Is that something you can say? I don't think you could say that to somebody. You look Samoan today.
You look Samoan today.
He said it. I just agreed with him. I can just smile and nod. So yeah, that's Ronald, the Samoan. And John, what are you going by today? Yeah, there you go. I missed it. I don't see a background though.
Oh, there'll be a background. Usually the background starts when we start talking about the movie.
Oh,
if I have one.
Oh,
if I have one. I was just thinking today, I almost didn't have time to do any like screenshots, and I was thinking, I hope I don't disappoint when I don't manage to. And I don't really mean it much as a comment on the movie if I don't bother to have a background. It's just that 9 times out of 10 I do, and so it seems like, oh, John must have hated the look of this movie, but no.
Yeah. Oh, good to see you both. Welcome to a new episode. We got a lot planned for this episode, a lot of newness. We got a required viewing pick from Ronald, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which just came out for digital rental or purchase.
Yes.
And then through some combination of the three of us, at least two of the three saw two relatively new films that are in theaters. We're going to talk a little bit later about Alex Garland's Warfare and Ryan Coogler's Sinners.
Mm-hmm.
But at the top, let's get into the required viewing. Ronald, remind us of your pick and why you chose it, and let's talk.
Yeah, so my pick was The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which was in limbo for a little bit and was picked up by Catch Up Entertainment fairly recently, and came out March 14th, and just came out on PVOD this past Tuesday. So yeah, I picked it because I was just really interested in seeing Looney Tunes and how this would translate to a modern day audience in that way. Like, this is America prepared for another Looney Tunes movie? And I can honestly say through watching it that I was, and I think I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, it was slapsticky as it should be.
Right.
Some of it felt a little old, but I think I liked that it felt that way. The animation was just beautiful to look at. You forget that there was a time period where stuff just kind of had this look. I mean, this is a modernized version of it, obviously, but yeah, it's just that the animation and the voices and the premise, it just felt like a really long episode of Looney Tunes, which was really cool. But overall, I think I enjoyed it. And I think this is just wetting our chops for the Acme movie that's coming out, I guess, next year. That looks really promising. And people are comparing to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I'm a little afraid of because I love that movie so much.
That's high praise in my opinion. But
yeah,
I know a lot of
real.
people consider that to be kind of a oldie but a goodie. I forgot to... after all that talk of backgrounds, I forgot to pull up my background. There it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to just get into this one by saying that one of the least cool things about me, maybe, and I know that I'm the one to assess this, right? This is not the only thing that only other people can assess about you. But one of the least cool things about me is that I am kind of a Warner Brothers animation nerd or a Looney Tunes nerd. I mean, I never had like a denim jacket with like a giant patch of the Tasmanian devil on the back of it or anything.
Denied.
I grew up with those cartoons, and in their various forms, they were televised, but they were theatrical shorts from the 40s and 50s, and 30s, I guess. That I grew up watching on television in different blocks. They had like the Looney Tunes block that would come on, like an hour of cartoons that would come on Saturday morning. And there was I guess there was like a half hour of them were Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons, and the other half hour was something else. I don't remember how it was broken down, but it was like a block of those. And that was on in various formats through my childhood, and then syndication, and then different channels would just have a block of classic cartoons. And I guess you guys are kind of nodding a little bit. That must have been still the thing when you were young. You watched, you came up when there was still like cable channels and just all this programming. And so you would just see a half hour of, and they would sometimes be incredibly poorly like degraded copies that these shows would have. You would, it was only later that you started seeing the kind of cleaned up and remastered animation. But I think those classic characters were much more relevant through our childhoods. And I would even say for me, the Warner Brothers thing over the Disney thing, like I could, like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and those characters were so real to me in ways that after a certain age, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck weren't characters that I thought about as much. I mean, I liked them when I was a kid, and the animation in Disney shorts was always so much more lush. But there was something kind of subversive and punk about the Warner Brothers cartoons, and they were goofier and more slapstick and not quite vulgar, but on the edge of being kind of like, this is disposable. Like they were trying to poke fun at the idea of whatever Disney was doing that was more lush and grand. And I think I've always liked that spirit. And I'll say this too. I wrote a term paper in high school about Daffy Duck, about the shift in Daffy Duck's character from in the early days where he really was Daffy and he lived up to the name and he went woohoo, and kind of the version we get in this movie. And then the later version where he's which hilarious cartoons, all the Duck Rabbit Duck stuff with hunting season and with Elmer Fudd in the woods and stuff.
Yeah,
where it's wordplay. And in those, Daffy Duck is this angry villain who gets what's coming to him over and over again. So I think, and so the premise of my paper, which was called "Duck: One Fowl's Journey from Daffy to Despicable."
Holy shit.
Duck with an exclamation point. Anyway, so I have a lot of thought put into these characters. I definitely sort of aged out in recent years, decades, really, of knowing what was up with how they're marketing them. But I have seen attempts of, they've had different shows and different attempts to kind of modernize them, as you were saying. And I think this is a really cool attempt to quote unquote modernize them because this is a complete throwback. The character designs in this are like based on Bob Clampett's character designs, and he was one of the early animators of the Warner Brothers shorts. And so these are like vintage looks, kind of 40s, early 40s, I guess, looks for Daffy and Porky that have been brought forward. And the animation to me almost looks like, what if you took the sort of Animaniacs level animation and then just made it cinematic? It's just more lush and more full than that. But it's like the style and the line quality and the kind of what you were saying, Ronald. Some of it feels a little dated, a little old. But it doesn't just feel like one kind of old. It feels vintage. Like I feel like this movie is made for people who love the classic shorts and also people who maybe loved the television animation that Warner Brothers did years later, like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain and all that stuff. It feels like it's trying to tie all that stuff in together stylistically. So I feel like there's a potential place for this movie, even if people aren't animation nerds. But I think if you are, it is a great take on these characters. And it also lines up with things like Dumb and Dumber and things like that, where you've got the two dummies and one of them has a little bit more of a romantic plot than the other one, and one of them is a little bit more of a troublemaker than the other one, and they have to kind of break up and get back together. It all follows that, and probably a little bit of like Bob Hope, Bing Crosby classic kind of road movie interplay between these characters. So there's something about this that feels very, very, very classic, but it's full of winks to modern culture. Even though, as I think about it, it's a pretty timeless take. It's almost like the Pee Wee Herman world in the sense that it feels like the past, but there's also moments where obviously it's the present because of jokes they're making in the thing. But it does feel like they feel like they live in a kind of classic world in this, like they live on a farm for Christ's sakes. I don't know. It just it was a cool attempt to update them, but not like overdo the whole thing of making them like cool. They weren't like riding around on skateboards and calling each other bro and stuff.
Yeah, I think the idea also just like approaching it from like to kind of straddle the classic with trying to modernize it. Like to your point, John, it's also interesting that it's so built around a B sci-fi movie. Like Body Snatchers, or even the Day of the Earth Stood Still. But that idea of like that's what our premise is, while trying to take these classic characters that are have a dense history, and you try to find a way to modernize it or try to bridge that gap a little bit for the people that still enjoy it, that grew up with it, or for the people the younger people watching it with them, or just for fans of animation that are kind of finding this kind of thing now, younger kids, teens, whatever. But I thought the movie was really good. Like, I thought it was really funny. The energy was great. I mean, it had that little sense of heart that a lot of the Looney Tunes stuff, has and always has had, even amongst like the zaniness of it all. But yeah, I was just really surprised, like how really funny I just thought it was. But I've always liked the Looney Tunes sense of humor, and I think that's something I've clearly been or had been exposed to from a very young age. And to your point, John, like the Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, like that era of it all. And even in the even throughout the 90s, like Looney Tunes had a whole rebranding to a younger culture, and a younger crowd through sports and through music and through movies, even if it wasn't straight up like Space Jam, things like it had a really big resurgence in that really sweet spot of my coming of age period. And my school graduation year, like our mascot was the Tasmanian Devil. Like it was Taz, so it's like there was really big anchor points for me with a lot of these characters and just these properties overall. So it was really cool to see something new from it, and it makes me even more. I mean, I've been to Ronald mentioned before, like the Acme versus Coyote thing. Like that sounds super cool to me, and like really just in the lane to want to see that already. But this kind of refresher and like a dose of this again in like a feature type environment. Because I always remember watching like the Looney Tunes features too, beyond even just the shorts or the episodes. They'd have those little bit longer running ones, even if it was only like an hour or something. But yeah, this is like a great refresher, a reminder. And yeah, I just thought it was really funny, and it was just really fun to watch. But yeah, it was really, really cool. I really liked it. My kid, and both Sydney and Dylan watched it with me. And yeah, Dylan, I mean, Sydney especially was like really digging it. So that made me pretty happy.
Well, you mentioned the fact that it's like a genre piece too. That's a smart thing to do. And a lot of the more recent attempts to bring like I remember in the post Roger Rabbit years when they would occasionally try to make a new Warner Brothers short put in front of movies.
Yes.
They would take that approach of like, okay, we're going to try to spoof a movie or spoof a genre in this.
Right.
And that's very much in the Warner Brothers spirit, to be spoofy, to be poking fun at something. But the fact that the arc of this pokes fun at like not just a B movie, but like it's got a real story to it. And there's actually kind of a twist in there that like it's like, maybe not the biggest, you're not falling off your seat, but it's a story turn that you didn't necessarily see, and it makes things kind of more funny and more interesting. And then even when there's like a moment later where Porky keeps trying to do damage control of like trying to stop Daffy from screwing things up, and they turn Daffy's screwing things up into a story point that becomes like it's cartoony at the same time as serving the story. And I feel like the story was clever in that way of like having these super cartoony slapsticky things that are not grounded at all, but they are part of a story that still feels like, oh, that even after Daffy goes down and like smashes all the teeth with the mallet, and they need him to, and they're like, just wait folks, and then it ends up working, like that's a very cartoony moment, but it's also the kind of moment you would need in your sci-fi movie. You would just have a less silly example of the same thing. That character who keeps screwing up does something that helps or something. So it's like that when you talk about the heart, Steve, it's buried in these characters, but we don't want to see like Daffy Duck and Porky Pig hate each other, or we don't want to see like one of them be like a screw up who can't redeem himself. It's silly as it is to say. It's great that whole like stick together part is like it's a nice little through line in the movie, and they're going to come back to it, and it's going to be a joke, but it's also going to be, just because what was his name, Farmer Jim. Was it Farmer Jim or Farmer Joe? Because he told them to always remember to stay together. Like that's a silly lesson for them to keep coming back to, but it actually was in the end what they did, and I think that's the kind of thing that makes it feel like it's more than just stupid. But it definitely, if you just want stupid jokes, it's got wall to wall idiocy. Like that moment, like this is one of my favorite cartoon things. It's so dumb. When a character's heart starts beating out of their chest and they pull they push their hands down to push their heart in, and then their head starts getting big. That's just that's old, and it works on me every time.
It works, yeah. I'll say it's tried and true.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, definitely a good pick, man. It was really fun to watch.
I saw somewhere, right? Steve, you mentioned the movie length edits they did before.
Yeah.
Those would often have like classic cartoons woven into them. I read that this is the first fully animated theatrical movie with these characters ever.
Which that's awesome. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Like of new material, not really repurposed
cool.
old shorts or whatever. So.
Packaging it together. Right. Yeah. That's cool. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
The other note. Go ahead, Ronald.
Since the 30s, and that's the first time that they've ever had like a.
I guess what I'm thinking of is like those things that were kind of patched together.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a longer running.
Right, they would have like a Fantasy Island wraparound.
That's it. Yeah,
or whatever.
That's it. Then, that's the one I was thinking of when I mentioned it earlier.
And one other thing I just wanted to say though is that over the years they've had different people doing the voices for these characters. I think right now these were great voices.
Oh yeah, man.
Because Mel Blanc is dead. It's not one guy doing all the voices anymore, and it's just not that way. So that's it. But like, if they're gonna get new people, these people like the full. Sometimes you get somebody who does the voice pretty well. It's like this with Kermit and stuff like that too, where they do it pretty well, and then there's a moment where they can't hit all the shades of the original voice. But I feel like these voices were really good in the sense of they hit all those little notes of like when Daffy gets excited or upset or gets low or whatever. They hit all of it, and I feel like it's cool that obviously you'd be able to find people that can do those voices and you just hire them. But if you look, it's cool to see that the stars of this film are voice actors and not
right.
someone they brought in like a known actor who can kind of do a reasonable Daffy Duck or something like that.
For some reason, I'm thinking Kevin Hart would be. They cast him for everything, man.
Who would? What is that energy? Like, I guess that's a question. What do you prefer, Ronald? Do you prefer early wacky Daffy, or do you prefer later sarcastic, gets his bill blown the wrong side of his head kind of Daffy?
I think second one, the newer one.
Nuanced.
Yeah, nuanced.
But kind of evil. Like, it's like his life didn't turn out the way that young goofy Daffy wanted it to turn out, and he's hardened by it.
He was acutely aware that people were trying to make him the butt of the joke. That was like really when he's like, "No, I'm not gonna fall for this," and then and then something would happen to him again. It's like, yeah, he was like, "You're not gonna play me in front of all these people," and then I kind of like that version of him.
What about you, Steve? What do you prefer, hoo-hoo Daffy, or the guy who gets, like what Ronald said, the perpetual number two who's a striver and can't quite get there?
Maybe the latter. I don't know. I think later on it's probably what I was most exposed to or grew up with, I guess.
I think in some ways it's a funnier, more nuanced character type.
Yeah.
But I also think for Daffy's sake, I like to remember that he was once young and hopped around and got out of situations and was likable. Like I don't know what happened between the two. Have they ever told that story? What happened to Daffy?
What happened to Daffy? He just was bitter, man. Like what happened? What bittered him?
I didn't. In my paper, I didn't postulate what happened to him, but I did suggest that Bugs Bunny is who we wish we were, but Daffy is who we actually are.
Okay.
I was pretty proud of that observation.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, Steve, now it's your pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm going with a doc. Only because it floated back into my
Patch Adams?
vision. What's that?
I said Patch Adams.
Patch Adams, right? Yeah, that kind of doc. It floated back into my attention recently. It was a documentary that I really wanted to watch last year, like before we made our best of the year list. That I had heard amazing things about. It's a Netflix doc. It's called The Remarkable Life of Ibelin. Which a number of people had recommended it to me. It basically is a doc about this Norwegian gamer named Mats Steen, who died from a muscular disease at the age of 25. But it's basically exploring like how his parents came to learn about his life
Mm.
through the community that he was a part of in the gaming world.
Is that the guy
Um,
that had the funeral online?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think I heard
I
about this
believe that's
too.
a part of the doc. I feel like I saw
Yeah.
that it might be in the trailer. But basically they just had this feeling that, like, their son just had this lonely, isolated life. But when he passed, they started being, contacted, and people were reaching out from this, gaming community from around the world, and it kind of pieced together these relationships that he had and his reputation. Just they learned a lot more about their son. But it's just an incredible doc that again is on Netflix. It came out in the fall of 2024, but it's available now. So hopefully we can all check it out and talk about it next week.
What's the name of it one more time?
It's called The Remarkable Life of Ibelin, Ibelin.
Okay, gotcha.
I think was his like gaming handle, I think. But um yeah, looks great. But yep, on Netflix.
Cool
Cool.
to mix it up. So far in this round, we've had an animated film, and now we're going to have a doc. What can I choose?
What will be next?
Yeah. You guys have to tell me all about what I missed. I missed the second meeting of Vampire Movie Club on
Yeah, we were
Monday
talking
night.
about that. We're like, this is what it was. It was me, Ronald, Pierre, and Lauren, and it was like he missed this meeting, but
We
we have to
coming in
call,
hot with this? You
we
sure you don't
have
want
to call it to
to
order though.
first?
Yeah.
What's that?
You sure you don't want to talk about Warfare first? Because this is
I think I'm dying to know. I'm dying to know because
okay. Okay. Okay.
I've seen nothing but raves, and so I'm sort of I'm expecting you guys to have positive things to say about this movie. But I'm also like any movie that you hear that about, you're wondering about like
Yeah.
the ways it's going to get you there. And so I'm very curious to
Yeah.
know what you guys think, if in fact you think it got you there. So yeah, open it up about Sinners, the new Ryan Coogler film. That the coolest thing about it is that the days leading up to this, there was huge internet fervor over a clip of a guy talking about formats
Yes.
and aspect ratios, and
Yeah.
I thought that was great. That was I loved that little whatever that news cycle was where people were talking about were excitedly about
Yeah.
formats.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ryan Coogler, a filmmaker who I think he's one of our guys, right? Like we talk every time we talk about
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
we kind of speak about him in those tones.
Um, masterpiece.
Really
It was a fucking masterpiece.
awesome.
I think it really is. It's hard to put into words, honestly, because it's so many things. Uh, this feels like his most personal movie he's ever done. It feels like he put his soul into this. It's like pieces of ideas that, he's like it's obviously an homage to blues and black culture, but there's a lot of love for like the Asian community and the Irish experience in
Experience, yeah.
America. There's a ton that he's doing to draw parallels between all these cultures on top of just celebrating these amazing roots of music and love and resilience and all these things that came together. And he uses film in a way that just feels like spiritual almost. You know what I mean? It feels like a meditation almost. It feels like I'm 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 watching a master at play. Like I'm watching, even just the first shot that, we you kind of see in the commercial with the twins smoking stack right beside each other, talking, kind of putting a cigarette between each other. The camera's rotating and showing this shot, and it's kind of the beginning of him showing off. He's like, "Look, this is
Yeah,
the
it's a flex.
beginning.
It's a
This
flex pretty
yeah,
early.
this
Yeah.
is the beginning of many shots that you're gonna see. If you think this is impressive, you're gonna see 50 more shots that exceed this, which is crazy to think about. It just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating, and it typically isn't even in an action setting. It's just to transition to another shot. It's just the things that he's doing and the sound. The sound is unreal. If you could see it in a Dolby theater, or see it in
IMAX.
the
We saw it in
IMAX.
IMAX.
Yeah, so see it how however you can see it, but see it in an IMAX theater if you can. If you can't, see it in a Dolby. If you can't, see it in a, see it how you can. But it is a beautiful movie that you should hear as well as see. So that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was when you were talking, John, about like just the raves about it. I feel like this is one of those situations where I think that's just going to be what it is. Honestly,
Mhm.
like I think this is no question for me his best film, and this is a filmmaker that we've all shown a lot
Yeah.
of love towards. That he's made some incredible movies. Fruitvale, Creed, Black Panther, even Wakanda Forever, like all very good to great, mostly
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But this is no question. This is like a different, honestly, like this feels like such a home run to me that I was telling Ronald and everybody after the screening, I was like, I don't know that I've seen a better movie in a long time. Like I don't want to like I'm trying to refrain from too much hyperbole, but like I had so much fun watching this movie, and I've had a lot of fun watching movies with both of you in theaters.
Mhm.
And it's in the conversations of like just a great experience watching a movie that is a crowd pleaser, that is saying so much about, historical experiences, cultural experiences, and just has so much creativity in the way that it's saying it. The idea of setting it where it's set, when it's set, adding vampires, adding an amazing score, a great soundtrack. Like there's really great songs in the movie. Like it's not a musical, but it is sort of a musical,
Yeah.
you know. Um it really does this magical thing of kind of keeping you off balance enough with all of the elements that I just said that when things happen, the experience of watching it happen is like never tiring. It's never predictable. You might know beats that you think are going down or coming up, but like there really is just a magical thing happening with the movie that, it's kind of like, you know, listening, I've been like devouring everything that he's done recently talking about this movie, specifically Ryan, but like, Dust Till Dawn, people talk like Hateful Eight, people even like The Faculty, like Robert Rodriguez, The Faculty. Like all these movies are clear, and he's even acknowledged influences. Puss in Boots, we talked
Puss in
about after the
Boots.
screening, like the inspiration, the death character from that, for Remick and the vampires. It's just I can't wait to see it again, and it's just one of those things where I don't know. I really, there's a lot of movies I'm looking forward to seeing this year. This was on the top of my list. Maybe like one or two other were right there with it. But I'd be shocked if I see a better movie this year. Knowing my sensibilities, what I like in movies, and
Mm-hmm.
to Ronald's comment about like just the skill and like there, Ryan Coogler is like one of the best filmmakers out there right now. Like what he's doing, who he's doing it with, the below the line skill that is at play on this film is just amazing. Um and yeah, man, like I love this film so much. Like I got home and told Aaron, I was like, I literally felt like I was floating a little bit walking out of the theater. Like it was just a wild. People were cheering during the movie. People were cheering at the end of the movie, laughing, jumping, gasping. It's just, man, he knocked it out of the park. I don't know. I don't want to ramble, but I really, really hope this movie overperforms.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like yeah, this is an original thing.
I
This is a real creative, bold swing. And it doesn't feel indulgent. It doesn't feel like anything like that. I think that adjective gets bunched into some of these big swing movies,
yeah.
um, like too personal or too much of a this is all for me. Like everything that he speaks about is so clear that he's trying to like make a movie that's relatable to anybody that wants to watch his films in whatever way you can get into his movie. And there's so many entry points to enjoying this film. Um,
Yeah. I was
Man.
gonna say Well, there's a couple things I love about Ryan Coogler. I love his passion for movies, and I love that he doesn't code switch. And there's something
Right.
about a person who doesn't compromise in their language at any point that really speaks to how he tells his story. It's a very clear, he's trying to tell a very specific story. And what that tells you about our stories is that they're universal. You know what I mean? Like, I think that people kind of feel like black stories are black stories, white stories are white stories. And this is proof that you can tell a story that's so specific, that's so about the suffering of black folks and the triumphs and everything, that is so fucking universal. And the parts that he doesn't know about, he researched. So
Yeah.
this he has a friend, I actually follow her on Instagram. He didn't really know about the Asian American experience. First generation Asian Americans. So he talked to somebody. He got information. He didn't know how twins work. So he talked to a couple twins that he grew up with in Oakland. It's like this like cool thing where you never hear about people that didn't know about something doing research on this level. You know what I mean? He was an expert at quite a few things in this movie, and everything else that he didn't, he researched, and it just shows. It's just a mastery of the craft, and I think that what needs to start happening is give him more money, give him more money to make more things and tell more stories. And Ludwig, man, can we talk about Ludwig Göransson and uh I know him from Childish Gambino stuff. I mean, that's how I know him at first. But he has become an amazing composer. There's a part that you must see in the movies where there's the first time we hear Preacher Boy play music. This scene,
Don't
John,
spoil it.
this scene
Yeah.
is sound wise insane. So
Yeah.
much is happening in your ears that you might faint. I'm glad.
Honestly, I felt like that scene is almost like a reveal. Like I feel like what that scene does, and again, we're not going to spoil anything. I feel like the marketing not having anything to do with that. There may be clips from it, like because
Yeah,
it's like a dancing sequence, but like I think the approach of how the movie starts and the voiceover in that scene, the way they just drip out the next line of dialogue and then it happens,
yeah,
it was amazing. Like
yeah,
it felt like a reveal. It felt like not a twist, but like a reveal of
yeah,
like, oh shit, like that's what's happening right here. Or
yeah,
that's where we're going right now.
yeah, yeah,
Um Amazing cast. Like the performances are all just so great. Michael B. Jordan, love the dude. This is probably his best performance. I mean, and he's been in some great stuff, man.
yeah,
But he's got some incredible scenes in here. Um, yeah, I don't know, just excuse me, just up and down. Miles Caton, who's like it's his feature film debut. He's Sammy. He's the preacher boy. He's the basic, I guess, co-leads of the film. He's great. Jack O'Connell as Remick is great, like the lead vampire.
yeah, yeah. Delroy Lindo.
Delroy Lindo, Haley
Oh,
Steinfeld.
oh
Uh,
man.
I was
And
looking up. I was looking up the girl who played Perlene, who was great. Jamie Lawson. She's from Baltimore. I
she's
didn't
from
realize that.
Baltimore.
Yeah, Jamie Lawson from Baltimore. She's been in like a lot of big stuff.
Yeah, she
But
is
I
gorgeous.
recognized her from The Woman King. I was like, where do I know her from? And she's in that movie, The Woman King, with Viola Davis.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But yeah, just John, you're gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your mind, dude. Like you're gonna love this movie so much.
I mean, obviously, I can't say anything except, oh, it sounds like you're right. I probably will. But like the one thing I haven't heard you talk much about is the sort of genre side of it. So how does this work as a vampire movie, a horror film? Like what put
Well,
it in the put it in the neighborhood of what kind of horror, or like is it sort of action horror? Is it like Under Siege kind of horror? It's hard for me to tell.
So I named 3 movies. I said,
oh yeah, you did.
Hateful Eight,
Okay.
From Dusk
From
Till
Dusk Till
Dawn,
Dawn.
and The Faculty were the ones.
Okay.
The Faculty is something he mentioned a lot in his interviews recently.
I want to throw one more in there. Harlem Nights.
Okay, all right.
Kind of
Sure.
feels like that
The
too.
crime element
the
of
crime
it.
element.
So
of
there's a
it.
mullet in there somewhere, a giant.
Yeah. But
Um,
yeah, it's oh
yeah,
man.
those are great reference points. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
like
Okay,
the
you did mention those. I wasn't just
one
thinking about those
location
as genre.
siege.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you got
Yeah.
like the one location, we've got to survive the night kind of vibe. You've got the first act or so is like getting the band together, getting the
Yeah.
group together. Let's assemble, who's gonna survive, or who's gonna try to survive the night. But I mean, it moves quick, dude. The pacing is really great. And a lot of that goes to just like, the really cool, approach to having Michael B. Jordan have, that these are twins, that we are with these characters for the better part of the beginning of the film, but when they break off and they're doing their respective tasks to get everything ready for this big, this opening of this juke that they're opened, that they're buying and opening themselves. But like, and you get to follow one of them doing one thing and one of them doing the other. So it moves around like really quick.
Yeah.
And you get introduced to a lot of characters, and yeah, it just all works, man. And you really do connect with them, and want to see what happens next for them. But yeah, I mean, again, Ronald, watch Ryan's video, the Kodak series video that he released about the formats. If you're by a format or can access a format, if you want that theatrical experience, whether it's IMAX, Dolby, all the different ones he kind of goes through in that video, I would just, you definitely benefit from the best presentation you can find, because they did make a really impressive technical film.
Yeah.
A first time ever type of film in terms of combining two really challenging formats, and seeing those format shifts in the IMAX was really amazing. But yeah, I really am hoping that this movie overperforms. Like, it was not an insanely expensive movie, but probably too expensive for a kind of film it is.
How much did it cost? Do you know?
The report is 90 million.
Okay.
Oh.
So, again, but yeah, we say that and you're like, okay, yeah, that's like not the 150, 200 that we hear about every other weekend. But also it's like, you don't want that number too against a filmmaker that you want to win, because like that number is like some people get set up to fail, when that number gets out of control.
Yes.
So, they're projecting 40 to 50. I hope they're being conservative, because I think it needs to get a little past that.
Somehow I feel like this movie, just with the way that, I mean, again, it's deceptive, but the way that this movie has been hyped, and the types of movies that hit at least that 100, 150, 200 million domestic or something, I feel like this feels like, I mean, you're talking about a movie that people are getting excited about, Steve, and your excitement about this movie to me speaks to the level of like, not that you're our barometer of like mass appreciation, but when you're talking the way you're talking about this movie, and it's got this hype behind it, it makes me feel like this is the kind of movie that people want to be excited about, because it is original, but it's also a vampire thing. It's genre, also like there's it's genre, it's tentpole, it's got all these different things. It's really also like it's also like a test of that Ryan Coogler being in that directors with a name that brings you to the theater thing. Yeah. It's also a test of Michael B. Jordan as the kind of leading man that can bring people out to see a movie. We talk about how we don't have stars that headline movies anymore. So there is something about this movie that feels like it's a classic. The movie I keep thinking of in tandem with it, which is not related to it in any way, except for the ways I just said, is that like the way that I felt when I watched the Mission Impossible trailer, and I was like, oh, this looks like it could be a huge crowd pleaser. That's the way I felt when I saw the Sinners trailer. Was this looks like it could be a huge crowd pleaser. I can just picture audiences getting into this. It feels, you kind of indicated, Steve, like down the middle enough to hit everybody, but also interesting and esoteric enough to bring some things in. And Ronald, I think that. I love hearing. I want to catch some of these stories about Coogler's process too. I don't even know if it's that rare for a director to do the kind of research you indicated. What I think is rare is for a director to do that kind of research and make it part of something that feels so fully human. And
Yeah.
doesn't feel like you're watching a history lesson. You know what I mean? It's one thing to do the research. It's another thing to make it, to embed it into a story that gets people excited. So, I mean, again, I think you guys are giving me a little bit of a contact buzz about this movie, but I promise I'll try to have a real opinion of it when I come back next week, because I'm definitely going to see it as soon as I can.
Yeah, man. See it, John, as soon as you can.
This might be a whole family one. This might be one that like Nikki and
it really can be.
It's a crowd pleaser, man.
It's a fun movie to watch, man.
The crowd was going crazy. Like Ryan paced these beats out for people to scream at the screen. You know what I mean? Like it's it's a lot of like
really good scene, like good scares.
Yeah. So many,
and for a frame of reference too, John, like the advanced screenings that we're able to attend, thankfully, like to be able to review these movies, you know, they're not always very crowded. They're not always very packed, you know, press, you know, in terms of turnout. But I mean, this screening was, I don't know if they turned people away, but it was full. I mean, it was a full house. And like Ronald and I didn't even get to sit together. It was so packed.
Yeah.
Like it was very crowded. And and like just everyone walking out of that theater was just completely buzzing from this movie. And
so was Lauren sitting with you?
Yeah, with me.
So she could report when you were rocking back and forth in your seat.
Oh, she could definitely report like when I sit up and like put my elbows on my knees and like, oh, I had moments where I'm like, oh my God, they're really doing that. Oh my God. Yeah, no,
there was at
least
cracking me up, man. After the movie, I really like when we go see movies with Lauren. She makes me super happy. She's funny as shit.
Well, especially when it's a vampire movie, she can just remind you how badly she just wants to be a vampire.
Yeah.
She's like, just bite me, okay? I mean, just ask me once.
Or a TikToker.
I remember after Nosferatu, she felt sort of like outside of that vampire experience. Like that's not her vampire. That was a sexy vampire.
Not my vampire.
Is she back to wanting to be a vampire?
Oh, this is absolutely her vampire. She was like, yeah, I mean, I don't see the problem here.
Yeah.
I don't see the problem here.
Oh my God.
And I will say, I mean, again, we're going to not spoil anything, but only one thing I want to make sure anybody listening knows, or that you know, John, is to make sure you stay for the credits.
Oh, cool.
Please stay.
So I can find out who the assistant grip was.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's very, you want to know that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I used to stay through the credits because I'm a big nerd. And now I stay through the credits, and even if it's a movie that I don't expect to have a post-credit scene, I make the joke in my head of what if this movie had a post-credit scene, like where Sam Jackson walks out and says, you know, we want you to join the Sinners Initiative or whatever. So it's like, but I used to be just, I would stick around, or I'd be sticking around often to find the name of a song or something. I would watch the credits of a movie. Well, we should talk about another new movie that's not brand new this week, or the day this episode comes out, but it's I think it came out last week or very recently, and I really only saw it because the day that you commented on having seen it, Ronald, I just saw a flurry of people online talking about it, and it suddenly was like, oh, I didn't realize A24 had made a Red State movie. That's what people were saying on
oh my God.
Which I think is interesting, but I also think it's sort of true, but it's also sort of not, because it's like the treatment of this material is it's an interesting treatment of like military action. Anyway, so we're talking about the movie Warfare, which is in theaters now, and it's a co-directing effort from Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland. I was kind of surprised to see Alex Garland have a movie so soon after Civil War in the theaters, but this looks like a movie that was kind of conceived. I think Ray Mendoza was an advisor on Civil War or something, and then that kind of led to this script, which is based on the real firsthand accounts of these soldiers that were in this insane action. That was basically just. I can't tell at the end of the movie if I fully understood what was going on, Ronald, or if the point of the movie was how pointless all this was in a way. But I do think it was a little bit of both. Like, I do think there's a larger context of when this is falling in and where it's happening. But there also is a general sense at the end of, they come through, they try to take a house, they try to hold their position, they can't really hold their position, they get fucked up, they get evacuated, and then you see the movie ends with you sort of understanding, like you sort of see the people that are still there start to return to some state of like, oh, that's over.
You got A24, which is it's a slice of life movie. So A24 seems to be like the experts of slice of life movies. And in particular, this one was one of those ones that just, it's just a day. It's just a day of this escape route. Like you said, like it's just this one block of time, Steve, and it is intense as shit. You know, when it first starts off and it just kind of like in this house, they kind of take over this
Right.
house
Right.
and set up their position, and they're trying to escape while also assessing the danger
And it's
around them.
literally like 1 minute in that they are like walking up and saying, "I like this house. I think we should take it." It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
there's not much story. I mean, if you know the historical context of it's the Battle of Ramadi in 2006, I think is when it's set. Or is that Ramadi? I never know how to pronounce that. But yeah, you're right, Ronald. They just come walking up, and the way they come creeping up, like it's that kind of thing where it's super quiet, but it's also not quiet. I don't know. You were talking about the sound design of Sinners. I thought the sound design of this movie was really important to
It
the
was.
tone of it too.
Was for sure.
But yeah, Ronald. So you were saying they end up taking this house, and then
Yeah, and then it just gets really crazy. And I think that one of the things that's really important is I think that a lot of war movies feel very like pro whatever, pro America, and this
yeah,
doesn't feel quite as. This just feels like a group of resilient kids that are in a situation that feels almost unbeatable. Like it's
yeah.
like things are coming from all sides, Steve. Like there's one event that kind of kicks it all off that makes it feel like there's no way they're getting out of this shit.
And that's relatively early. It's about halfway in,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
But it's like you realize that you weren't. It's that in any movie like this, you're wondering who's going to be the characters that are kind of going to come through, and who's going to get messed up, and who's going to die, and you have all those thoughts. But like I would argue that in my mind, the two most interesting characters get not so much taken out, but like about halfway in, their situation changes, and then you're finding out about some of these other characters,
Yeah.
and it's just a really interesting arc for the movie to have because it is very slice of life, and it doesn't feel like they manipulated the narrative too much because it doesn't. It's not like a super. And I don't. This is going to sound like a complaint, but it's not. It's not like a satisfying narrative. It's a very unsatisfying story, but it's that way by design. Like what happens really is just a loss.
Yeah.
They're trying to escape. They find a thing like, and then things get bad, and your only hope. It's like it reminds me of one of those horror movies where at the end, if the people make it onto like a raft at the end and float away, you're like, hey, they got away. Like that's all you're really hoping for is to see these people get out of this situation. And Ronald, it felt very claustrophobic. There were certain stretches of this movie where and confusing. Like you don't really know. And if you were in that situation, so often in a movie you have a bird's eye view. You're like, well, this is what I would do. I didn't know what I would do in any moment of this movie.
And what they do to make it even more rough is like, every time something happens, it's like this. You can see people developing shell shock like right there. It's like, oh, this is how this happens. Like, how you watch some military movies, everybody's like, right, shooting people, bashing people's brains in. This is very different. It's like the trauma of it all happens so immediately and it affects people differently. And sometimes it's like part of the battle is just nursing a person to a point where they're functional after something traumatic happens, which I don't think I've ever seen in a movie happen to so many people in a group. Like it is traumatic. Like hearing the bullets and watching the explosions and watching your friends hurt and the immediacy of the fear and what it does to some of the people in the group is so jarring. Like it's like at first I was like, toughen up. And I'm like, what would I would be crouched in a corner. Like I wouldn't be able to handle this. This is fucking traumatic. And they're not even out of the situation, at the point where all the traumatic stuff happens.
Right.
It is somehow it's gorgeous in a way. Like it's like there's something about them being plopped down in the tight shots that's really kind of beautiful. The sun piercing through because it's going from like midday into the evening, and the dynamic between the characters is so fucking good. Like they really feel like brothers. One of the guys from Reservation Dogs is in it.
Yeah, what's his name?
DeFaro.
DeFaro Wunatai.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he's incredible in it.
He's kind of the main guy. He's playing Mendoza. He plays.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know that when I was watching the movie, that his character, like, it was fun to watch him just pop up, but it's very clear very quickly that we're following him a little more closely. But everyone's great in this. You know who was fantastic in this, Ronald? It's Cosmo Jarvis. That section of the movie where he's just looking through the sight of the rifle and he's just commenting, and you could feel his breath as he's like steadying up a shot, and you hear him like breathing, and it's got this agitation in it, but it also you can feel how he's using his breath to steady himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like his accent work, I thought was a strange thing to point out, but he had a great, as a guy from the South, he had a great Southern accent, and he's a guy who sounded like fucking Richard Burton on Shogun. You know?
Yeah.
I expected him to show up and it's like, yeah. But no, no, Steve. He's more like he's like this. He's a guy who's like, all right, dude, I need to take a break.
Yeah.
And it's just so real. And it's like, it took me a minute to even know that it was him. Like, I knew that he was in this, but it took me a minute to notice. I have to say, though, if you're looking for that sort of Black Hawk Down thing of like, will you one day look back and say this was an amazing cast? I think this already is an amazing cast.
Yeah.
Joseph Quinn. DeFaro. We just mentioned Cosmo Jarvis, but Michael Gandolfini is great in this.
Yes.
And
Will
Poulter.
Will Poulter.
Fantastic.
This cast is crazy.
Yeah. And they're all doing what you just said, Ronald. There's that midpoint in the movie where a guy with a little bit of shell shock is noticing a guy who has a lot of shell shock.
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
And there's that guy who wanders off and has this, like, stands there forever. That guy was really good too.
He was incredible, man.
But you worried about him from the start. He seemed like he was kind of on edge a little bit more. But he's a guy that just goes deer in headlights at a certain point. And it was like, I mean, I'm not saying I've never seen that in a movie. I don't think I've ever seen it depicted, kind of what you said, Ronald, of just like, at this point, there's nobody who's in control of this group of guys who knows how to bring stability to the situation. So it's just a lot of, I mean, you almost would say this movie was one note, but I was thinking about it. It's actually three notes. It's really quiet, it's bullets, and it's a bunch of people yelling. And then fourth note is that thing where you're in the minds of the characters and you're hearing their distorted hearing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a moment of after an explosion where it takes a long time for us to get back to like the real world of sound. And when it is, it's the sound of somebody screaming in agony, you know, which goes on for, that's the fifth note. Somebody screaming in agony is one of the notes in this movie. So maybe it's a 5-note movie, but either way, I'm saying I could see some people finding this movie unrelenting, even at 90 minutes, that it's like, it's hard to sit through. I found that it had just enough modulation in it that I wasn't put off by how just jarring it was. It was very immersive.
It was so immersive. I don't like war movies, and this is my kind of war movie. Like, I don't like I'm not anti-America, but
I know what you're saying though.
I don't like propaganda. I don't like watching propaganda in movie form, and this didn't feel like it. It felt like this feels like the video you show a kid if they're like, I'm gonna go to the Middle East and fuck everybody up. You like watch Warfare, and then you come back to me and see how you feel about it. Like,
and then they're like, I watched World of Warcraft. Is that what you said? I watched it.
But yeah, this is a special one, man. It's a special movie. Alex Garland, I love what he did with this one. It just feels like, from Ex Machina to Civil War to this to Annihilation. Like, I feel like his filmography is so all over the place. Even for two war movies that were not even that far apart, that feel so different. I love what this movie is, and I kind of want to see it again. I'm hoping that I get some time to see it again.
I would say if there's one thing, if you don't like it to see in movies, don't come see Warfare, and that is if you don't like messed up legs.
Yeah. Oh, this should be called Messed Up Legs. It shouldn't even be called Warfare. You want to see fucked up legs?
You want to see gory legs?
Yeah.
No, but it's like the way that stuff happens is so gritty and real. And like when I said like the agony, you really live in that moment of like, oh my God, you don't even think about it often in movies. The guy gets blown up, he's alive, they carry him off on a stretcher.
Right.
This movie makes you realize what agony every bounce of that stretcher would be if you had, if you were horribly injured. And the movie does not shy away from the visuals of that stuff. I've been telling you guys for weeks I'm afraid to watch The Pit because I don't like to watch that kind of medical gore. And then I go see this movie and I'm like, well,
you can watch The Pit. If you watch this, you can watch The Pit because this shit got...
Yeah, this is unsettling.
Yeah.
But also in the name of putting you in the experience, like living in the moment with these guys. It's very,
I did not realize that was I didn't know that was Cosmo Jarvis.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I mean, like...
A little mustache and a southern accent, and suddenly you
killed it.
You forget who you're looking at,
So go ahead, see the shit out of this movie, Steve. Please.
Yeah, I actually almost went and saw it over the weekend.
Are you either one of you gang? Are you in A24 club?
No,
are you
I'm
gang?
Not. I'm not
look,
in the A24
I'm gonna
club.
Look, man. I don't $10 a month,
gang.
You every movie that comes out, you get an opening weekend ticket.
That's amazing.
Join the gang. Join gang.
Comedy gang.
Gang.
Well, that's a show.
Yeah, I think that's some good stuff. I mean, a lot of good stuff here on the show today. Thankfully, we always appreciate being able to be so positive about things.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, this was a very positive episode.
Yeah, wow. I can't wait to see Warfare. So recap. Sinners is in theaters now. Warfare is in theaters now. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, is on demand, video, PVOD, whatever service you can rent or buy from now. And my choice for next week's required viewing is The Remarkable Life of Ibelin. That's on Netflix documentary. So we'll be talking about that next week. You can go to Schmovie.com to listen to past episodes, to see links to whatever podcast platform you would maybe prefer to consume your podcasts through, all on that website. Additionally, we have the YouTube option, youtube.com/Movie podcast. If you want to listen, you can do that there as well. If you want to watch, you can really do that there as well. Whether it's the full episode or just snippets, you can, see what strikes your fancy and take your pick. But if you could go to the YouTube and subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified, so you kind of keep updated with anything we might put out. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening as always. You've made our day. Thanks.